Blended workforces are one of the hottest talent strategies today, where employers are using a mix of traditional employees with external resources like independent contractors, coaches, consultants, vendors, and technology solutions, all in order to enhance competitiveness, ensure cost flexibility, and expedite business goals. But how are the successful companies infusing blended workforces into their business strategy? And what are the critical success factors and pitfalls to avoid during implementation? And on the flip side, what does it really take for suppliers to improve their chances of finding and landing contract opportunities? The devil is in the details, my friends. I'm your host, Karen Farrell Rhodes, and it's time to get smarter about blended workforces at work. Hello, my superstars. This is Karen, and welcome to another episode of the Blended Workforces at Work podcast. Boy, do we have a treat in store for you today. I am so honored to have on today's show Kirk Mitchell, who is the director of the Vendor Management Office at the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association. And at the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association, he leads the development of the supply base operating capacity, which directly impacts healthcare operations for over 5 million Americans. And yes, that is a mouthful, but we're going to dig into what that really means on a day to day basis in just a moment. But please join me in welcoming Kirk to the show. So, welcome, Kirk.
Thanks, Jared. Pleasure being here.
Oh, it's too awesome to have you. I had, briefly shared with you during our pre-chat that early in my career, I worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida, which is not the same as a whole big association, but I knew a little bit about a little bit. So, but I'm
Right.
super thrilled to help our listeners learn more about your role and how that plays into an aspect of the world of blended workforces. But before we do that and dive in, we love to learn a little bit more about our guests. So, for as much as you feel comfortable, would you mind giving us a sneak peek into your life outside of work?
Sure. Well, like parents and kids out there, they take up a big part of that time. So I've got kids around, I've got kids that are just on the young side of the wide world. So you'll probably find me at the Y. We love the Y. So my kids are big in sports. So soccer, basketball, volleyball, always doing something at the Y, and then workouts with me. So we'll get a sense. And that's probably where I was camping out a lot. The other I'm so proud in front of us is we live in Pennsylvania. So we're right next to a state park with a couple of balls. No, we like the option. No kayaking, keeping kids in the sun, people out around, all the devices, right? So
Right.
that's every question.
That's right. Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing that. I love why as well, and it sounds like your family keeps you very busy, and I'm sure there are other
It
interests
works.
and things that you have as well. But thank you for sharing. All right, well, let's start out by can you share just a little bit about your work history before you got to the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association, and then catch us up to where you are now. And I know I didn't do it any justice, so can you please share with the listeners kind of the core responsibilities of your job day to
Sure.
day?
My career started in contracting. I'm a little by training. So I literally get excited by reading the content. So I started reading, writing contracts, negotiating contracts, doing large, complex negotiations, all of it. And one day, someone comes to me on a deal that I did, and I have great pride in my work. And it's the big contract you did for us. That didn't work. Didn't work. And I was really thought about it. I said, my contract always work. What you guys do? Except the time when we realized that the SLAs need to be tweaked, the setup wasn't quite right around how we keep requirements. And there's some work to be done. You work wasn't over yet because I did the deal. And that really resonated with me. I said, so I went to my leadership and I said, when we're doing our concept,
Right.
what happens with the business? What resources do we have to help them continue to improve their relationships with their vendors? And they said, well, we'll get that. We're done and we'll source again, fix the next. And then it didn't work for me. I mean, this is a business that we're doing important work. They wanted to have a positive experience with their vendor and didn't have like a dedicated resource. And I always like the opportunity to go back and fix that's broke, right? So I started to understand what vendor management was. And that's really what this is. When you're done with a contract, you're not, and when they're large and complex, for multiple years, and have millions of dollars flowing through them, often across multiple business lines or product areas, they tend to break, and they tend to break a lot. And so you constantly are fixing things in the relationship, or the way the business and client work together, because a contract will never capture everything. They're inherently not perfect, and then the contract itself changed and done. The business environment changed, internal changes. So I found it very exciting to lead works that are focused on what we call post-signature work. The contract's done, the relationship is just for partner with the keeping so constantly assess the relationship with opportunities and fix those up, assessing inherent risks that just comes doing well with another vendor, often on a global basis. And three, develop opportunity, develop how often when vendors are working with you for multiple years, they start to learn you well. You get a lot of value to it. And not taking advantage of that value is built. You're just looking a lot on the field. So we let the business know, you can ask the vendor to help. They are like the consultant for it. For the same money, they'll come to you and give you its insight, give you advice, give you a resource, help you innovate. Ask. We're excited because it makes them look good and they get full on work and it opens up new opportunities for more kind of everyone way. So those are three areas we like to play in and put controls and make sure all our relationships are moving in that direction of all our supply chain. That's kind of systematic.
Interesting. Now, are you in an individual contributor role, or do you have a team that helps you with all of those, what do we call it, post-signature work and contract?
Well, good question. I've done this work as an individual contributor. I'm thankfully I have help these days. So in my current role, I have a team of four. We're a small lighting team. So two of my team sits in Chicago, Illinois. Two of my team sits with me here in the DC office, and we get together whenever we can. I'm very careful that some of my team was somebody called, some don't like it when it's hot. So, we have good fun about what we're going to get together when we do. But we all bring a slightly different flavor of background to work and from a great holistic team effort around how we help each other make the same work, which is how is a my business, stakeholders be successful. But
Oh, very interesting. Can you give our listeners an example of a type of vendor or supplier that you work with? And you don't have to give an individual name, but maybe what they offer or how they support the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association.
also heard, in most organizations, that's something you want to put on that now. Most organizations run, when you reach a certain size, you're running on a large IT, but you're maintaining applications, you maintain platforms, some are in cloud, some may be in a data center, and you have a hybrid approach. You might be building software with a vendor, building changes to software, seeing those changes with team. So my portfolio consistently has had IT in it. So it's for anything this thing I saw we have done. Well, the licensing, exactly. The services I usually touch for consulting services, self-augmentation, and both in what we call a managed service construct. So there's that dedicated team, so it's dedicated support day in and day out. You run in to a system that will never go away. They place the system. And then you got kind of snap off, which is I need a contract. Don't need a flip, but I do need a contract. And so it's 6 months a year. And then we roll on. And then you've got like project teams that roll on relative to the funding life cycle. And then you've got things in below the thing. I would love, and just in terms of clarity, but I want platform support is also infrastructure. Last year, databases and storage, all that is separate stuff that run. Yeah.
And I'm sorry if I missed this because I was feverishly writing notes while you were talking. Does your team help with the sourcing when vendors are needed, or are the business leaders responsible for screening, finding them, and then they hand them off to you all for contracting, onboarding, and integration into the business?
Good question. In some instances, often it's BMO. I don't need to worry about contracting. And then they figure out, you can do contracting and sourcing. Come and help us out. And so I'm doing because I have that background. I have global services from large vendors. So I can go work way down. I know the complexity of the scoring model. And so we pulled up an expertise, a lot of source, complex categories, and deal with complex hierarchical structures, large vendors, and the game they like to play. That's a really valuable skill set. And I'll I was supporting that those processes where I land. And our team doesn't land that, and then we like building up those skill sets and adding value. At some point, our vision for VMO is we start moving away from the implementation piece and have the sourcing experts take on that role
Yeah.
and more VMO work and making them successful with our direct involvement. And we can do more of the traditional VMO work, controls, reporting, insight. Yeah.
Interesting. With our company, SDL, Shockingly Different Leadership, who sponsors the podcast, we have both internal staff and contractors as well, but we're totally in the human capital game, and that's it, that sliver of the world. But we do support enterprise level and larger companies. And I'm always invited, to be on panels and talk about, the work that we do and how we integrate. But I always share that, just leaving corporate America and hanging your shingle is not enough for a lot of established companies such as yours, that you've really got to understand their whole procurement processes, the business requirements that will be asked of you, everything from insurance to having all your documents ready to enroll maybe in of their vendor system. There's a lot of complexity. So I love for you to share, Kirk, if maybe it's some tips, a tip or two that companies need to think about, suppliers and vendors need to think about when you're looking to land contracts with, established businesses that have processes in place, in order to be considered to be on the short list for a company such as yours.
That was a great question. I see a lot of those solicitations. I see solicitations from large companies. We're a smaller firm, but we have kind of large firm dollars running through our organization by design.
Yeah.
So we do like to, and we do complex work. So we like working hard with that. But I found that smaller firms give us a little more edge. And so working with them, we want to make those successful. So we decided to do that. I think smaller firms, what makes them successful also sometimes, so they won't have the depth of capacity often they're looking for, but they'll be more agile around adapting how they work. And that's the best making their leadership team top available to us to join. And you might get that with vendors that are 5 to 10.
Yes.
That's very, I think, smaller firms want to improve a bit, at least in a couple areas. One thought is not necessarily related to the role of talent, but on LinkedIn. So people see my role and they know like consultants and they'll reach out.
Right.
And I'll say, hey, I'm YZ, a staffing firm, or whatever I do, and what we can and give me a generic blurb about certain resources they'll look at play, which is nice. Okay, I got that. Got some folks who want to staff. But now it's only my problem. What about my world? Right? So
Right.
I would say your pitch should be a little different. And this is tough for firms to do because they want to do everything to maximize the possibility of landing a role.
Yeah.
And so there's I can do anything for you. I can do this, I can development, I can do support, I can do web, front end, back end, and no one believes it. Right?
Right.
Everyone has a niche. If you don't have a niche, that's perceived as a risk. It's perceived that you haven't doubled down, found out who you are, found out that you've aligned the organization around what you do well, exceeding deep into the area and are exceedingly an expert against other people in that. If you said, hey, you know what? Only do front end web development and we do like nobody else, everything a web front end problem, we're head support.
Nice.
That's the number two.
Yes.
And I was struggling and saying to my team and say, if you ever have a front end problem with our vendors that do web front end development and other bit, let's include it because that's all we can do, right? That's how, to me, I will manage that opportunity. The other one that says everything, I said, well, you're not really focused, you don't know what you do, and they're probably like, I got 20 of those this week, come over here. Let's look at declaring this, and actually can give you white people or a case study to prove. Maybe lots of unique work imagination tools, frameworks. It can do something so most people can't, but this one, I'm taking right off a lot of man soaps into the teaching stuff.
And really quick before you do the second one, you're so right on that because the goal of any supplier, vendor, consultant, who any external member of an external talent pool, your goal should be to be memorable enough to get that first contract. And once you get in, it's been our experience that they'll ask if you do a great job, they're going to ask, "Oh, wow, this engagement went so well. What else can you do?" They'll look for ways to, give you more opportunities, and it may hit some of those external skill sets that you have. But to your point, niching down and helping to be memorable for your area of expertise will get you into the door a lot faster, usually. That's Karen's perspective.
Relevable and so this thing.
Yes. And then
And the second thing I think,
you have a
is,
second point?
yeah. So a little out of the box thinking. So I'm talking to business owners, small business folks, that I write on LinkedIn. And some of them reach out to me and they say, "Hey, that's a pretty powerful, what do you, help me out with this and that." And I say to them, "What are you dealing with?" And one thing I'm interested in, or not, we get ghosted. Like we'll be talking to a large client about an opportunity and they'll just leave. That it'll stop responding to us and it's difficult to deal with, and it slows down. It starts off hot and slows down. How can, as a small vendor, and how do we make noise, stay relevant on these long sales and get back and getting things up back? And two things up to mind that I haven't seen, but I think my one is don't think it's real small from that you're less valuable. So don't think that you can't say, if we can't continue the pace of conversation and nothing's pop up, I'll be fine. Like, she can't guarantee you access to Lisa if we can't get this stuff. Like, she's going to get built out on the next project. And you're going to lose her. And I think she's just perfect for you. So we can close this deal soon. I can give you my best people. I can give you the your pulling promotion that we're doing, right? But if we go for another month or 2 months, we're going to have to do all those things. Just because we have other people in the pipeline. Like, find a way to talk about value loss. That drives the company. Okay.
Yeah.
And they'll go around flexing a little bit, but give a standard ground. But the second one is assess yourself. Get a simple tool, simple survey. I'm accountable. I want to be accountable. I'm going to give a survey. I'll administer it. I'll give it to you to use in your enterprise. Just bring together the stakeholders after a contract and stuff. That's assess me. How am I doing?
Yeah.
Right? How am I doing? Am I communicate well? Do I deliver well? Am I adding value? Am I doing what you post in the contract? Am I doing more than
Yeah.
that's the finders and improvement, mental improvement? You do it every 6 months, every year. And it's systemically driving your own value with that relation. And never seen a supplier do that. That's what I do. If supplier offered to do that, I would look for to that step.
Those are gems. Those are absolute gems because it helps the clients really understand how much you care about level of expertise and performance. It shows your agility and willingness to course correct for those things that may not be clicking at 100%. And it instills trust. It deepens trust. Yes. So I love those. Those are absolutely fantastic nuggets. Now, in your current role, are most of your vendors and suppliers US based or are they global?
Yeah. So in this current role, I only deal with presenting with so from a delivery perspective, we're starting emerging to delivery for some service. But we're largely US based and sourcing most of our stuff on the whole from
Yeah. But I know you've had quite a bit of experience also with offshore teams, correct?
those facts. So that's the one big intersection. So when you go to the IT space, it's just you're not going to be able to staff a large, significant body of IT resources without going off.
Yeah.
It's just the way you get good people at a rate actually can afford is to go offshore. That's the one reason people go off.
Yeah.
It's not even getting more rates, it's get access.
Access. You're correct.
That person that was one, or with this unique platform that we run, support changes. Can't find me. And then you go vendor all short probably can get them. And the difference between getting them and not is you being able to run your business.
You're right. I had two people actually, two separate episodes before this one, gosh, a couple months back, where they were tech in the tech arena. And they were saying how it's so important to be able to access offshore talent because there just wasn't enough, one, enough locally, and number two, the affordability factor too, based on the amount of development and that they had in their plans. I did have one person we interviewed for a previous episode that was talking about nearshoring as well, where you go to, more rural areas to find talent and mix that sometimes with your offshoring. But would love
Yeah.
to hear your thoughts about the pros and cons of offshoring since you dabbled in that a bit as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, you could, it's a few offshoring is, yeah, double-edged sword. If you read literature, you'll start to see a lot of research being done in the area of pulling offshoring back onshore. It's because we're starting to get to the tipping point in a lot of areas where the rates have been going up in double digits in a lot of popular offshore sites. Yeah, maybe in the Philippines for years. And for some higher end skill role, and you look at the total cost, I'm a big proponent of total cost it out. So the rate of one resource might be 30% or 50% lower than the rate of another resource who's onshore. But because the onshore person's in front of me, I can talk, I can give her diagrams, I can give her feedback, she can give me feedback in real time. She's there all day when I am there, and I can build this close relationship with her and build this rapport that being able to fast. Where I have to wait. If my window to talk to someone is 2 to 3 hours a day, and I have to then wait and have a day to talk to them. And we only talk to them on video chat. It's just, and so the literature would say making that to measure the inefficiency of the site not being on your site. You deliver the service.
Right.
And when you have multiple sites, it gets less and less efficient, the more sites you get. So if you have 3 to 4 sites in India, your productivity is taking for every incremental new site you need to with per day with. So with your end cost and the slow, cost of orchestrating the work through the cloud and the logistics of management, you could step back and your pricing speed, fast delivery, and accurate delivery. You probably are almost close to just paying on sort of person to do what's there. But it's not always the case. Your case is probably tougher to make when your numbers are really large, but the tipping point is emerging sooner than not, from the past about, what onshore is looking not too crazy. Let's just onshore for now and maybe delay offshore. So as long as we're getting all the right people, let's just keep onshore.
Yeah, I can totally
So
think through that. Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
yes, one. So I that's a positive. A positive is cost savings. So not always. You got to think about the trade-offs. And really, in your business, is it really worth it? And do some real analysis. There's some tools that one go to it. And the other aspect of working broadly is, like you're talking about assets or resources. You often find a lot of the large vendors have most of their people offshore. So the U.S. is somewhat of a long deep talent bench for something. Struggle to get people either through a larger firm, team of 20 folks that can do one thing. If you sit there talk about capacity or supplier of it, you got to think about that as well. So I think it's cost and access are usually the big drivers when you're offshoring or not. But that, depending on what you're doing and how fast you're doing it and what scale, that person can come out different.
Fascinating, fascinating. I'm going to ask you a question that you may or may not be able to answer. So I want to say that up front. And if you're not able to, it's totally fine.
We'll come for you there.
But I'm curious, especially in your role, I found that many managers within larger companies aren't really taught how to manage a blended workforce. Like they're not really taught how to more effectively integrate, vendors and suppliers with their full-time teams and the technology. These were things, and I'm dating myself, but these are things that we weren't really taught in business school. And I'm just curious if there's anything that your office does to help up-level the skills of managers when they are using external talent as part of their teams, or do you know of any offerings in your company that does that? Because you got to be careful, especially in the U.S., not to cross over those IRS guidelines as far as directing work. So
That's right.
this is a long rambling way to ask the question: are there any types of support for managers that you know of within your own firm to help them build better blended workforce teams?
That's a great question. In fact, you're not the only one asking it. I remember when I first started this work, I was doing my first outsourcing deals back in 2000. And we were back in those days, you took the whole IT department and you said the whole thing. That's how they did,
Yeah.
right? It's and they give you a good check. It was great.
Yeah.
And then, so we did the deal, and we're all excited about the deal. And I kind of paused and I turned to my boss. what, there's hundreds of people and all the computers and all this stuff. Who's going to manage it? And how do we know how to manage it?
Right.
And then out. And it wasn't our job, right?
Yep.
Then I spent time methods of figuring, and that like mystified me. I was like, really? We're just going to hand them all these templates. And these are like, these are books. There are 300 pages, right? You've got 50 schedules, and there's all this stuff not in the contract you should know. How are they going to know where to start? I don't know where to start, and it scrap it. And that was one of the things I kind of leaned into in my career is to help answer those questions. I think it's a gap. I think she's made a great work because I think it's a gap in the industry. And don't think we tell people how to manage contract. I think it's a complex question. It's one of the reasons why they're excited about this podcast, because I think there's a lot of serious about how to think about this issue. My newsletter is called Protect Operate. Most companies, when you look at your spend, we have contracted it out. We don't have operations.
Right. Right.
We have outsourcing agreements, and license agreements, and SaaS agreements, and all these different kinds of contracts that are a big part of how we run our firm. But yeah, how many people have agreements about how to manage a relationship through a contractual vehicle? It's a document that's not meant for you. It's meant for lawyers, my lawyer.
Right.
So first thing, you have to navigate this nasty looking thing that's pages long
Yeah.
and has all the gobbledygook. But buried in there are constraints on cost, how you can change price, what you can expect when, and how you can hold them accountable, right? So just, you have to pull that stuff out. And we often don't do a good job of. There are some emerging trends in the current legal industry that are helping. There's a concept called legal design, which is emerging out of Europe, which is taking complex project documents and making them readable for the business audience. And so they'll make graphic arts, apply infographic toolkits and, summaries, and probably think ChatGPT would be a good tool to add with that. Pull out the relevant pieces and put it in a nice, easily adjustable form as one page. Right?
Wow.
A simple thing like that. How do I terminate? How do I eliminate? How do I ask for scope change?
Yeah.
How do I integrate with my own permanent legal team?
Yeah.
Just quick little things. I build it every day, you forget. And some helpful tools and aids that we built up in our assets for the business to help navigate the relationship. So that's what I'm accountable for. I'm accountable for helping my business do the obvious things that need to do.
Yeah.
And money doesn't got. But alongside of that, and you touched on it, that's not all you need to do. I mean, if you just manage the contract, you're not managing about relationship.
Exactly.
Most of people and most inside the fund often need to be kept informed of what's going on in the contract relationship, the finance, InfoSec team, the legal team from time to time, depending on what's happening with the relationship and what can run through. But also there are things you can get from your supplier. You can put the contract aside, know how to do that.
Yeah.
You can do other things that are not in the contract, how valuable the contract need not be in your way. You can handle it.
That
And knowing where that green area is and how to navigate it, especially when you're trying to meet budget constraints and time delivery constraints, the contract all way, not time to change it. So having experts that are trained in the contract, necessitating the business, and kind of how to navigate those things and negotiate all that business value on relationships. And this will work in that gray area to help the debt member and client get stuff done. Contract's not in the way, but yet we're honoring the contract and how and what it needs to do. Everyone expects control rate, make sure we don't have cyber breaches, make sure that's not violated. Nimbly look the light.
wow. Okay, Kirk, if this wasn't a master class, I don't know what it is.
Right.
This is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I know we're running close on time now, but we can't let you get out of here without asking you one of our signature questions. As you know,
Yeah.
I did research and wrote a book on leadership execution, and we love
I agree with the book.
our
Yes.
we love to ask our guests, which of the buckets we write about that came out of the research really resonate. All 7 are equally as important and you use them at different times, but we're always
Yeah.
curious to see, get our guests' thoughts. So you were so kind to share that leading with stakeholder savvy was one that really popped for you. And for those
It is.
listeners who have not gotten the book or read the research, stakeholder savvy is all about where you assess the interpersonal dynamics in situations that you're in, and you might tweak how you behave, act, speak, and what have you to operate effectively in that environment. So, how you act at a happy hour or a team dinner might be totally different than when you're presenting to a board of directors, that kind of thing. It's just a destiny. It's the sister tactic to emotional intelligence. So curious minds want to know, Kirk, why did stakeholder savvy really resonate with you?
Interesting question, because if you asked me this question 10 years ago, I would have said intellectual first power, right? Because we all feel that imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
We want more certain opinions, we want more experience, you want to see what's coming around the corner. And so early in the career, I think that's probably as you get into leadership and you have the personality develop, work with more leadership above and across the organization, stakeholder savvy starts to rise, I think, this place.
Yeah.
All the deep expertise that why you can always ask someone or get some coaching, bring an AI or whatever. You can figure out a lot of things on the fly
Yeah.
that gets you from day to day. But if you don't read the room right,
You can tank.
you're done.
Yes.
You can take it. I remember the saying when we were growing up in school, and they go, I know dumb questions. Yes, there
Yes,
are.
there are.
There are no questions. There are no questions. And if you ask the wrong question in the wrong context, it can be perceived incorrectly. So knowing who you're in front of and how they're thinking about you and how they're thinking of the process, how the vendor reads regarding your organization, that is a part of, leverage, damage of that and measure that and use that. That's not that's the techniques. These are stakeholder skills you only get by, practice and failure often.
Yeah.
There are not a lot of literature around it,
Yeah.
but it's just critical. And in my whole group, we all agreed on that. I mean, you said, what is the one thing that we need to be good at? When times are good, when times are bad.
That's right.
Our group will be successful and also if we have strong relationships with our business partners.
That's right.
If we know who the decision makers are, how to get to them and influence them correctly around how to add value to them and their team to make them successful, we will win.
That's right. Relationships are key and adding value is key. All right. Well, Kirk, we'll have a ton of information about you, your background and bio, all in our show notes. But I always love to give guests just a little bit of airtime just to share where folks can find out more about the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association and where they can follow you if you're on any social media channels.
Absolutely. You don't know about Blue Cross Blue Shield. We're everywhere in every state. We cover the healthcare for over 100 million Americans with a third of the population. So if you're a founder of the Blue family, we would love having you. Consider please do. Make it pride in what we do. And there are a lot of massive changes that are happening across the Blue system to deliver better healthcare. And we find ourselves on delivering great healthcare. For me, it's not a side hustle yet, but I enjoy writing. So I write about what I do and about the world I call contracting operations on my own newsletter on LinkedIn. That's called Contracting Operations. Subscribe by the LinkedIn. And I usually crank out something once a month. I'll probably be writing a lot more starting out later this year. But I have structure to that. But I have a lot of content up there about how to use AI and how to get value out of relationships on the complex side. And we're probably thinking about how to apply that in very small business as well.
All right. Well, I'm going to be following you because I'm going to be one of your first subscribers. I've got to keep up with all the great advice that you're giving out. But
We're glad to help you.
well, thank you, Kirk, for the gift of your time and sharing your insights with us today. We really appreciate it.
Hey, Charles, my pleasure, and good luck. And see everyone else. Have a great day.
Oh, awesome. And thank you to listeners as well for joining another episode of our podcast. As I always like to say, we know there are literally millions of other podcasts you could be listening to, and we don't take your patronage lightly. All that we ask is that you please like or subscribe our podcast on your favorite podcast platform of choice, and just share the podcast with just one friend, because by doing so, it will help us all to get more smarter about blended workforces at work. Thanks so much, and see you next week. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you again for listening to the Blended Workforces at Work podcast. You can check out the show notes, additional episodes, bonus resources, and also submit guest recommendations on our website at blendedworkforcesatwork.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, or YouTube by searching for the name Karen Rhodes, with Karen being spelled Karan. And if you like the show, the greatest gift you can give would be to subscribe and leave a rating on your favorite podcast platform of choice. This podcast has been a production of Shockingly Different Leadership, a global consultancy which helps organizations execute their people, talent development, and organizational effectiveness initiatives on an on-demand, contract, fractional, or project basis. Huge thanks to the SDL production and editing team for a job well done. Bye for now.